Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video from lockdown. Today I'd like to share with you 5 of the things that I wish I'd known when I started my video production business. These are 5 of the things that have enabled me to go from charging £500 a video to 10, 20 and even £30,000 and up with some of the world's biggest brands and broadcasters. I wanted to share these 5 points with you now because they're just as, if not more important in the current situation than any other time. So without further ado, let's get started. First and foremost, you can no longer differentiate yourself simply by creating great looking content. If we look back to say 20 years ago, it was dramatically easier to get work with big broadcasters or get a project funded. Now technology means that without much training and money, almost anyone can create great looking content and publish it for the world to see. Now, with millions of videos uploaded to the internet a day, people have become immune to the wow factor of mind-blowing visuals. At first, it was mind-blowing that a DSLR could produce a broadcast quality image. Then came camera movements on jibs, rigs and stabilizers that people had only previously seen in Hollywood movies. Nowadays, we're even immune to the wow factor of a drone, which previously would have required helicopters and huge budgets to get those incredible aerial shots. So the key point here is that quality is no longer hard to get. In fact, it's become an expectation. If you're hired to make a video, whether it's for a big brand, startup business or broadcaster, they expect the level of quality that they see online every day. So if you can't differentiate as a business on quality, what can you differentiate on? When pitching for work, you're probably going to be competing with many other production companies, all offering variations of the same thing. If you watch my last video on finding your niche, I talked about how so many video creators sell themselves on creating brand stories and great visuals with innovative techniques and access to lots of equipment. These are all things that the client is already expecting, so they're not selling points. Instead, what will enable you to stand out is results. Results include things like return on investment, revenue, and profit. And you can only do this when you connect with a client on a business level. Focus on strategy instead of aesthetics. Understanding this is the key reason that some business owners are able to charge significantly more than others. Do you want to be a camera owner-operator or a business owner and entrepreneur who solves important problems? The second thing that I wish I knew when starting my video production company is that you need to be speaking to business owners every day. Most creatives, including myself from time to time, like to just shut off from the outside world and focus on creating. It's probably the part that you love most, and for some people that's the dream. To be able to do whatever you want to do and get paid to do it. So that could include shooting with expensive equipment, directing or editing. If you only want to do a single skill like cinematography or editing, then you should probably consider getting a day job for that role, because the reality of running a business is very different. Businesses are built on relationships, and to run a successful business, you need to be speaking to other business owners on a daily basis. In my 10+ years of experience, the single determining factor that separates a struggling business from a successful business is the quality of its relationships. The better the relationships, the more successful the business. What I used to do when I first started my business was get really immersed in a project and completely forget about everything else. Then, when I came out the other side for air, I'd realized I'd gone days or weeks without focusing on bringing in new business. This meant that my life and my bank balance was like a roller coaster, only doing one thing at a time and neglecting the others. By speaking to other business owners every day, you're going to ensure that you're continually building relationships and therefore growing your business. This brings me on to my next point. When I first started my business, I really struggled to manage my time effectively. In particular, all the day-to-day tasks from admin to writing, editing, the website, employees, and of course, speaking to clients. Most of the time, we already know what the things are that we should be focusing on, what the long-term, high-value tasks are. But inevitably, we get caught up in the things that seem more urgent. I used to wake up, open my email, and then emerge 4 or 5 hours later, having handled seemingly important things, only to know deep down that I was neglecting the tasks that mattered most. As creative business owners, we have the added challenge of having to handle both the creative tasks in the right side of the brain and the logical, linear tasks in the left. Now, if you're human too, you probably struggle to do both at once. If I try and mix my accounting or emails with editing or script writing, well, it's a recipe for a very unproductive day. So what I started doing, which made a huge difference to my effectiveness as a business owner, was doing all my creative tasks first thing in the morning. I'll wake up, meditate, have breakfast, and then do whatever creative tasks I've set myself from the night before. It might be script writing, editing, storyboard, whatever it is, I do it for at least 4 hours completely undistracted. No checking email, no phones, nothing that takes my mind off the task at hand. This is why it's also important to set the task the day or the night before, so you don't have to engage that part of the brain and risk getting distracted. I know without fail that the work I do in the morning is 10 times more effective than the work that I do later in the day. And since implementing this strategy, in the last 2 years alone, I've been able to write 2 books, almost 100 scripts, and shoot and edit almost as many videos. So I only really wish I knew this trick a long time before. The fourth thing that I wish I'd known before starting my video production company is to hire your weaknesses. But even before you do that, you need to do 2 things. The first is to identify your weaknesses. You may have an idea already of what you're good at, but what's more difficult is to really dig down into what you're not so good at. When I first started, I knew I was good with people on set and in meetings, but I really struggled with the cold approach, introducing myself to prospects over the phone or in person. So when I realized the problem, the first thing I did was hire a salesperson who was good at these things. He took care of the initial outreach, and then we'd take the meeting together. Once the deal was closed, I'd take care of the rest, and then he'd continue to generate new business. This was one of the biggest factors that helped me to scale, because not only did it fill in for my weaknesses and help bring in new business, but it also meant that we could continue to do so even when I was deep into a project with my attention elsewhere. Another weakness that we all share is not enough time. So be sure to identify what your most time-consuming activities are and hire accordingly. For me, it has always been editing. At times, I would literally be sinking around 50% of my time into editing, and I knew that had to stop. Hiring an editor was one of the best investments I ever made. It's not always easy to identify your weaknesses, and whether you know them or not, I suggest checking out the book Strengths-Based Leadership and their Strength Finder assessment. Finally, on this topic of hiring, a quote that has always stuck with me from author Tim Ferriss: "Never automate something that can't be eliminated, and never delegate something that can't be automated or streamlined. Otherwise, you waste someone else's time instead of your own, which now wastes your hard-earned cash." Last but not least, and the fifth thing that I wish I knew when starting my production company, is to be able to identify the things that are working and then double or even triple down on them. I've often talked about how I used to spread myself too thin. Even when I found something that works, I'd be like, okay, what's next? I always had the energy wanting to do new things and solve new problems, but I didn't have the focus to turn those seeds into something fruitful. Even after hiring my first salesperson and finding a niche that was giving excellent returns, I'd then pivot and move on to something else. One day it was real estate, the next it was luxury hotels, then products, and so on. As fun as this might have seemed at the time, it's not a reliable or consistent way to grow a business. I go more into niching down in my previous video, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. When you find something that's working, hone in on it and double the input, whether that's time, money, or resources. Keep increasing it until you've reached your goals. This approach has enabled me to build financial stability, which in turn enabled me to do other creative projects and expand out further. What have you got in your life or business right now that's working? And could you double down on it? And what would happen if you did? So there you have my 5 things that I wish I'd known before starting my company. To recap, they were: you can't differentiate yourself just by creating good-looking content. You need to be speaking to business owners every day. Do your best creative work first thing in the morning. Hire your weaknesses, and double down on what's working. These are all things that I've implemented in my business over the years and have made a significant impact on my ability to have a more rewarding and fulfilling business, land more clients, and even charge higher rates. They're all things that are not only applicable in general, but also right now in lockdown. For example, speaking to business owners every day is still vitally important. The connections that you forge will help set your business up for success in the future. Lockdown has also given us time for reflection, so you can be identifying the things in your business that are working and doubling or tripling down on them, either now or in the future. So I hope you found these tips useful and can hopefully start implementing some of them in your business right away. If there's anything that you'd like to add or any tips and ideas that you'd like to share, then please put them in the comments below. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.